Welcome back to Raised by Giants live discussion. Good to see everyone. Welcome everyone in the chat and any moderators and channel members out there, and to anyone that's listening to the replay. Thanks for joining us. And if you're listening on the audio only, welcome. If you're watching on YouTube or X, be sure to follow the audio only on any and all podcast platforms. You can set it to where the shows are automatically downloaded upon release. I listen to a lot of podcasts while I'm driving, doing a bunch of other things on Spotify. Okay, it makes things a lot easier. So follow the show on Apple Podcast, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, so you never miss a show. A Clockwork Shining is also available on Tubi. Anywhere you can download the Tubi app, you can now watch my documentary, A Clockwork Shining, on Tubi. So even if you've already seen it, thank you. But watch it again on Tubi. It'll really help us out and really support our next venture that I'm currently working on, which is going to be about the DIA Army Intelligence Psychic Spy Program. It's going to be a really great one. But I have a Clockwork Shining pinned to the top of the chat, and it's also in the description of this video. So with that down, we have with us today Juila from the Cosmic Peach podcast, which explores the fringe and unthinkable, cryptids, true crime, serial killers, paranormal activity, conspiracy theories, and the most ancient of mysteries. Juila, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Hi, thanks for having me, Ryder. I've been looking forward to this one. Thank you.
Yeah, I was on your show, so I thought that it was only right that I bring you on over here, and we have a really interesting topic to discuss here today, which is Marilyn Monroe. Oh my God, this is one of the first conspiracies I think that I ever really heard. Where was it at on your list?
So, I kind of grew up idolizing Marilyn a little bit. She's still so iconic. And when I got into looking into JFK is how I started connecting dots with Marilyn. And then I stumbled across this book. I got the book because it has 2 chapters, one on RFK and one on JFK. It's called Dead Wrong. And it's a conspiracy book. It's actually written by a comedian. And some of the best conspiracy theorists out there are comedians, I've found out. But yeah, it's a really great book. And there was another chapter on Marilyn and how there's no way when you actually look at the forensic evidence in the autopsy of Marilyn that she could have committed suicide. And I would say that she is one of the first cases of someone getting suicided and everyone just being like, oh, okay, well, I guess she was just really depressed and took a bunch of pills. Case closed and moving on. And it just simply was not the case with Marilyn.
What did well, first off, before we get too deep, can you explain to people your podcast, when you started your podcast? And you just mentioned how you kind of started into it, but maybe give a little bit about that so people can check out your work, because you put out really good content on the audio only, right?
Yeah, thanks so much. So I have Cosmic Peach podcast. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts and on Patreon. I put full episodes over on Patreon. Sometimes only half of it is available on the free feed. I put some bonus stuff over there, and all the videos are available on Patreon only. I've already been kicked off YouTube. So that's, if you want to see videos and presentations, you'll have to make your reservation to room 237. That's what the tier is called on Patreon. So much like Ryder, I'm a big Kubrick fan, always have been. But yeah, so I do a lot of stuff on program serial killers, paranormal activity, general conspiracy theories, the gamut. And I try to shake it up and mix it up so people don't get too bored. But yeah, so I actually have a sleep paralysis mini series coming out right now. And then I have a couple episodes on some unknown programmed serial killers that somehow I had never heard of until recently, but they're definitely programmed to kill style serial killers that I'm doing a couple presentations on. But yeah, that's the show in a nutshell.
The links to Julia's information. I got your link tree in the description. It's the first link down there. So if you guys are interested, please go over and support her and subscribe to all of her stuff. So the autopsy of Marilyn Monroe, because we know that there's weird autopsies with like all of these people. Okay, there's a weird JFK autopsy that depicted things that weren't seen in the Zapruder film. There's there was no photos of Oswald's autopsy. It was just a drawing. So weird. So, what did the official autopsy say was the cause of death? I mean, obviously, they're saying that it's suicide, right? But was there anything else within the autopsy?
Yes. So her official cause of death was acute barbiturate poisoning. The official verdict was suicide, but the deputy medical examiner later went back with a pencil and wrote in the word probable because he was not convinced that it was a suicide, even though that they were dead set on listing it as a suicide. He went back and literally penciled in the word probable because there was just a lot to be suspicious about on the official verdict of suicide. And so we all kind of know that Marilyn was most likely and actually confirmed to be having um like a intimate relationship with not only John F. Kennedy but Robert too. She was documented in several of her psychiatric sessions that were recorded as having sexual affairs with both of them. Also with Sam Giancana of the Chicago mob and Frank Sinatra, Johnny Roselli, who is also Chicago mob, and then a Soviet intelligence agent named Frederick Field. So this woman definitely had some interesting connections, and that does play a part into how I believe, based on the evidence with her autopsy and her life, that she probably just got into something that she was way over her head, and she had to get dealt with. Um, so once she started developing this relationship with Frederick Field, this Soviet intelligence guy, her house was bugged by the mob and separately by the US government. So she actually was getting double tapped at her house. So every move she made, every phone call she made, she was being watched not only by the mob but by the US government. And so that was all cleaned up after her alleged suicide. There were a lot of her personal items that were stolen from the house. There were cabinets where she had written in journals, and that they were in locked cabinets that got busted open the night that she committed suicide, and all the journals were stolen. There was some other interesting artifacts that were taken from Marilyn's house the night she committed suicide. All of this, by the way, would be unlikely if someone simply swallowed a bottle of pills. Why would it be necessary to break in and vandalize someone's home? Why would it be necessary to bug someone's house? Why would it be necessary? Like there was just too much going on for me to think like, oh, she was just depressed and she killed herself. Um and the coroner, I think it was actually no, it was the medical examiner. His name was Dr. Thomas Naguchi. And this guy's never been are you familiar with him?
Yes, I know Naguchi.
Really? What case did you stumble upon with Naguchi?
This was involved with JFK, I believe.
Yeah, he's done a lot of celebs and politicians. And he's never been
No, it was
discredited.
RFK. I'm sorry.
RFK?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the examiner for RFK, I believe.
So, as far
Autopsy of
as I
him.
can tell, he's never been discredited, but he's kind of, obscured.
And I think that his determination was that RFK was shot like almost point blank range in
Right.
the head. Yeah.
So, I guess you could agree then that his findings are generally sometimes, obscured because they're a little bit too true for people to come across. Like, nobody wants this guy out here saying RFK was shot at point blank range. Nobody wants this guy out here saying Marilyn didn't kill herself. So, I mean, he's never been discredited as far as I know, but he has been kind of hidden from public view as far as like he's never been asked to go on Dr. Phil and talk about the real what he really found with like the Marilyn autopsy or something like that. But so he found absolutely no trace of tablets in Marilyn's stomach, period. He said it was completely empty and that her intestines were completely empty, and actually she hadn't even eaten or drank anything that day besides water. So she had been completely fasted, obviously in some type of like emotional upset, which I'll kind of talk about later. But she hadn't even eaten that day, and there were no tablets found in her stomach or her intestine. And computer analysis compiled all the pharmaceutical data and concluded that in order to reach the levels that Marilyn had in her system, she would have had to have swallowed 60 to 70 Nimbutal tablets and 19 to 20 chloral hydrate tablets. But yet, there is no evidence whatsoever found in the stomach or the intestine of Marilyn to suggest that any tablets were taken, period. And that is the medical examiner, Dr. Thomas Naguchi. And he did note that digestion stops at death. So, with all suicide victims, without exception, there are undigested tablets found in the stomach and in the intestine, because most of the time people take too much and they're dead before their body can even absorb the full amount of the tablets. So there's always like some undigestive tablets or what is called refractive crystals that are found in the stomach and the intestine. And refractive crystals are basically just what the tablets look like after they've been broken down and they're starting to be digested. It's like the remnants. Um, and so in all suicide cases, without exception, when someone swallows an overdose of oral medication, let's just say, they die before their body even has a chance to break all of it down. And so there's always substantial residue in the stomach and intestine. And yet, when we look at Marilyn's, it's clean. She had drank that day was, I think, a little bit of grapefruit juice and some water. So where are the tablets if she had swallowed 60 to 70 Nimbutal and 19 to 20 chloral hydrate tablets? Where's the evidence of that? Do you have any thoughts before we move on? I'm just curious.
Well, it seems like a way to, well, first off, there's a lot of people that have had their place like raided after their death. Stanley Kubrick had their place raided after his death. Mary Pinchot Meyer, which was also another mistress of JFK, also had her house raided after she was found dead on the DC towpath from apparent gunshot wounds. And that was done by James Jesus Angleton. Okay, and Mary Pinchot Meyer was married to the head of the CIA at the time, Cord Meyer. Okay, and her house was broken into and her diary was stolen. But you also have me thinking too, because there's a lot of, well, why were these people in suits going in and breaking into their house and taking all their stuff? A part of that could be because of the bugging of the house, right? They want to go in and get their bugs, their listening devices out of their house before it's, there's a full scale investigation and people find that their house was bugged. So that might be a good way. I mean, I'm sure there's other reasons for that as well. but that one makes sense too. And with the overdose thing, that seems like the second option that they kind of go with. I mean, we've seen that in the Jeffrey Epstein, the people that have. There's been 3 Jeffrey Epstein victims that have all died of supposed accidental drug overdoses. 2 of them were in West Palm Beach, Florida, in a hotel room. The most recent one was Virginia Giuffre, where they're now saying that it was an accidental drug overdose. Okay, 1 or 2 can be a coincidence, but whenever it gets up into like 3, and I also believe this is kind of off topic, but I also believe that they did that exact same thing to Prince. I believe they 100% switched out Prince's medication. From all people, Prince was never a drug addict. He didn't drink. He didn't do anything. So, and all that was found there was really like bare Tylenol bottles. Okay, so it's pretty easy to go in there and slip out those, those Tylenol tablets and put in some fentanyl pills.
Right.
Okay, and you think that you're taking a couple of Tylenol for a little bit of back pain or to help you go to sleep at night or whatever it is that you're doing with the Tylenols, and you're really taking like a handful of fentanyl pills. I'm not
Well,
saying
and
that's a fact, but I'm just saying that it's highly possible that, I mean, that would be the
right.
easiest way to do it. So it seems like that their modus operandi is suicide, like, that they hung themselves, okay, or they shot themselves or whatever that you can get into Kurt Cobain from that as well. I mean, there's been several. That whole thing has been blown wide open. There's no possible way in the world that he could have used a shotgun to shoot himself in the head. Like
With his foot.
with his, yeah, you'd have to put your big toe into the trigger and then turn the shotgun around.
Still had shoes on too, so he somehow did it with his shoe on,
Yeah,
like,
it's unbelievable.
and then
So
he slashed his own tires after he shot himself, and just
exactly. Makes so much sense. A lot of sense. Everything kind of lines up on that one. But I think that the first one is like having them kind of, you know, go this way, and then we can make it look like that's what they did. And then the option B is accidental drug overdose. I mean, Whitney Houston, same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with Whitney Houston. I mean, she was in the bathtub in the hotel room and then said that she took too many pills and then she drowned in a bathtub. You know how hard it is to drown in a hotel bathtub? And then also,
Right.
when you look at Danny Casolaro from the Octopus murders case, have you looked into that at all? Like, he's in a hotel room and it's just insanity. But let's keep it on Marilyn Monroe. Sorry, my brain just kind of went off on a whole tangent.
No, that's good. I think, when we did, the Clockwork Shining, episode together, I think you or which one of us mentioned, Frank Olson and how there's no way that was a freaking suicide. I mean, they've been successful at pulling this off, going all the way back into time and just, "Oh, it's a suicide," and then what bothers me the most about Marilyn is that they won't let it go that it was a suicide, and they keep making documentaries, and they keep putting stuff out, like, on Netflix, and they'll make movies, and they'll show her as, like, a insanely depressed woman that just couldn't handle the fame, and, like, she had, like, some miscarriages or something like that, or she stayed at, like, a mental hospital for a while, and she just lost it, and she just committed suicide, but if you took 5 seconds to look at her autopsy report, you'd see like, all right, yeah, maybe she got a little blue from time to time. Sure, everybody does, but did she kill herself? I don't think so. She was actually kind of an asshole, and all of her housekeepers would have told you that. Like, she was very full of herself. Um, and she almost thought she was better than everybody else, and her psychiatrists even noted, like, she was very excited about some projects that she had coming up, around the time of her alleged suicide, and that she was actually at the top of her game, and that they would never have suspected her to have wanted to commit suicide because she was feeling so good about everything. And actually, she was being successfully weaned off the 2 medications that they found in her system. She didn't even have access to the amount that killed her because they were weaning her off of getting better. She didn't even need them as much. And so the huge levels that were found in her bloodstream made absolutely no sense for even the prescription that she had of the Nimbutal. Like, she had so much Nimbutal and chloral hydrate in her bloodstream. You could kill like 5 elephants. Nobody's getting a prescription for that. Like, what, like, where did she even get that much to begin with, you know? Um, and according to the toxicologist, she had 2.88 times that much chloral hydrate and Nimbutal in her liver. So, however these drugs were introduced into the body, we know that it wasn't orally because there were no tablets found in her stomach or her intestine. But however the 2 drugs were introduced in the body was in such a rapid fashion, it basically fried her liver and killed her before, um, she could even you know, when you die, you, like, purge, everything comes out,
Mhm.
so, nose stops. She died before she could even evacuate her bowels, is what the autopsy report read. So, her liver was fried, had 2.88 times the amount of chloral hydrate and Utah found in her bloodstream, and she died so rapidly, she turned blue, and she didn't even evacuate her bowels. So, just with what I've told you so far, do you have any idea of how they could have introduced the drugs into her system and her die in this rapid way?
Injection or like some kind of chloroform inhalant.
So
That
that's
would
what
be
I
my
thought too. And so Dr. Naguchi went over her body with a fine tooth comb, looking in between toes, fingers, everywhere for an injection site. Because of the rapidity of her death, he was sure it had to be like a massive injection that just killed her almost instantly. But what he found was actually she had no puncture wounds, and that was eliminated as a possibility. But what he did find is that the back of her body, near her butt cheeks and her hips, the backs of her arms and her legs were bruised, and so she had been clearly held down, and her colon was purple. It was swollen and it was bruised. And the official cause of death that he listed was enema, a one of the enema types, not the hose and bag that a lot of people think of when they think of an enema. It would actually be like, I don't know if you've ever seen them, but it's like a bulb type enema, and you just shoot it up your butt, like, really quick. People use them for, like, coffee enemas and, like, weird stuff like that. I'm not into it personally, but I know that there are people who are, not judging, but there's these enema bulbs that have, like, a short nozzle on them, and when you squeeze them, they're introduced into the body rapidly, and then the point is to flush it right back out and then move on with your life. But in this case, it was actually a weapon of choice, if you will, of the mob during this time in the 60s to use these enema bulbs to kill people. And so, with her connections to the Chicago mob, Frank Sinatra, Johnny Roselli, all these weirdos, and the vehicle in which they used to kill her, I would assume that the mob had something to do with it because there were quite a few bodies that turned up around the same time frame in the 60s who had died of a massive drug overdose via enema bulb. It was like their favorite thing to do. And her so not only had she been held down because of the bruises on the backs of her arms and legs and her hip, But because her colon was purple and swollen and she had not been able to evacuate her bowels, it would suggest that they were obstructed in some way to prevent her from doing so. And something else that stood out is that in the throes of death, when you die of an oral sedative overdose, you regurgitate everywhere. Your body goes into complete evacuation mode. And when suicide victims are found that have died of a sedative drug overdose orally, you'll find regurgitated material all over the bed, the floor, the bathroom. Sometimes they're crawling to the bathroom. They don't make it all the way. There's a trail of vomit behind them. The scene is usually described as horrific. And in Marilyn's case, there was no regurgitated material found anywhere. She had not thrown up. And again, there was no tablets in the stomach or the intestines. So if she had taken 70 sleeping pills mixed with 20 chloral hydrate, there would have been regurgitated material. And why in the fuck would her colon be purple and swollen and, all these other indicators that she had been given a rectal enema? I mean, it also would explain why she died in such a rapid way, because once you get something rectally, it goes almost immediately into the bloodstream, and it can kill you way faster than a slow oral overdose. You die with the quickness. So, that is something else that stood out to me as being like, why is no one else talking about this? Also,
What about
she
SA? Do we think that someone SA'd her before death?
I think so. Because and I actually think they necrophiled her. I think that I will explain why, but I do feel like for a number of reasons, they took their sweet ass time calling the police that night. Obviously, they took about 4 hours in between the time of death and calling the police. The story in which they tell why they took 4 hours to do so makes no sense at all. And then we go back to the autopsy report, and she had something called secondary and tertiary lividity markings. So lividity is a monumental part of forensic science because it can tell you in which position the person died. Because when you die, your blood settles in your body. It's called lividity. And so if you find a deceased person and all their blood has settled to their back, to the back of the head in their back, you know that they died face up. But if you find someone with lividity where all their blood has settled towards their face, you know they died face down. Marilyn was found face down in the soldier's position, which is arms down at the sides, legs kind of outward and spread open. But that wouldn't make sense for a suicide victim either, because not a lot of people die in a soldier's position. It's usually a clear sign that the body has been staged. So Marilyn was found in this face down position, but she had lividity markings that suggested that she died in a face down position, but she was rolled over onto her back for about 4 hours, creating secondary lividity markings, and that she was rolled back over onto her front, creating tertiary lividity markings. And basically, she had been moved from face down, face up, face down again, within 4 hours after her death. So they were moving her body around several times.
Now,
That with the bruising, you tell me.
who called the police to report it?
So that is a great question. I'm glad you asked. They say that Marilyn's body was never moved, which is clearly a lie because of the lividity markings. Lividity doesn't lie. Her housekeeper, this is the official story, and trust me, It doesn't make sense to me either, but just this is the official story. Marilyn went to bed. Her housekeeper was up doing some laundry, noticed that there was a light on in Marilyn's bedroom around midnight. The housekeeper found that it was unusual for Marilyn to be up that late. She tried the door handle and knocked on the door, no response. So the housekeeper calls her psychiatrist, Dr. Greenson. Dr. Greenson arrives at the home a few minutes later. He tries the door. He, calls out to her, no response. So the official story is that Dr. Greenson ran around the front of the home, that he used a rock to break open the bedroom window, in which he crawled through the bedroom window, noticed that Marilyn was dead, and immediately called her physician, her general practitioner, to come to the house. He gets to the house. He doesn't touch the body, nothing. They just are like, yeah, she's definitely dead. So they call her publicist. Then they call her agents, and they call a couple other people. It takes about 4 hours for this entire transaction to go down before they get the idea about 4 hours later that they need to call the police, in which one Sergeant Clemens arrived at the scene 4 hours after Dr. Greenson first arrived. He, as a medical professional, Dr. Greenson and her primary care provider, Dr. Ingleson, or Engelberg, I think is his last name. Neither one of them tried to revive her. Neither one of them tried to resuscitate her, or they said that they didn't touch the body whatsoever. Just showed up at the house. They broke in through the window, saw her laying on the bed, and was like, oh, she's dead. Let's call some publicists and some agents and fuck around for about 4 hours, I guess, before they called the police finally. And when the first officer on the scene arrived, he said that it had been clearly staged crime scene, and that the first thing he noticed in regards to this story that they told him is that why, if you broke in from the outside of the house into the bedroom to check on Marilyn, is all the glass on the outside of the window. And they had absolutely no answer for that whatsoever. It made 0 sense. And Sergeant Clemens said that it was the most obviously staged setup crime scene that he had ever seen. And the house reeked of bleach when he got there. He also noticed that although there was a neatly knocked over pill bottle right next to Marilyn, there was no drinking glass of any kind that she could have used to take these pills with. So Sergeant Clemens asked Dr. Greenson if they had tampered with anything, moved anything, if they had seen a drinking glass. And Dr. Greenson and Dr. Engelberg were both like, no, we haven't touched anything. And he said, well, if she's taken all these pills, like, where's a glass of water? Where's anything that she could have used to swallow these? So they start looking around, and they find out the water has been shut off to Marilyn's home because she's remodeling. And it made it even further improbable that she would have even had access to, like, drink some water out of the sink, have a glass of water, nothing. And then in the autopsy report, it showed that she had only had some grapefruit juice for breakfast, and that she didn't have pills or anything else in her stomach. So obviously the pill thing was just a setup. It was like a prop that they used to try to explain how she died. Another thing that was interesting is right before the newspaper people or whoever got there to, like, take pictures of Marilyn all humiliated, nude in the bed, there goes a glass of water right next to the bed. And Sergeant Clemens wrote down in his little notepad, he goes, It is odd to me how we searched the house for 20 minutes looking for a drinking glass, and then right before the publicist got there goes a glass right next to the bed just in time for them to start taking pictures. So, it wasn't even it was like a sloppy cover-up job too. It wa they didn't even, like, take their time to, like, make sure stuff looked right.
That is so odd that the doctor would have to break into, because didn't you just say the house cleaner had called him and told him to come? Why wouldn't she just unlock the front door? Why would he need to break in through the window through to get inside? Like, just unlock the front
So,
door and I'll come in the front door.
the official story is that he did it because Marilyn wouldn't open her bedroom door, and he wanted to make sure she was okay. So, that's why he had to go around the front of the house and break into her room through the window, because she had supposedly locked her bedroom door and wouldn't let anybody in. We find out later that that's a huge lie because the glass was broken from the inside of the bedroom.
Right, yeah.
Um,
So
but the official
he's
story was
covering for someone that he knew did this and then exited out the window.
mhm,
And he's like, "Okay, well, how do we make this make sense? I'll say that I had to break the window from the outside to get inside."
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, none of it made sense, Ryder. Honestly, they didn't really even take time to put together a good story because so Sergeant Clemens was like, "All right, well, let me talk to the housekeeper." He goes, "Well, what have you been doing the last 4 hours while they've been calling publicists and whatever? It took you guys 4 hours to call the police. I don't get it." And she's like, "Well, I've been doing laundry and, I've been doing this and that." And it's like, "Who are you doing laundry for? Your employer is dead and you know that. You know she's dead. You've known she's been dead for 4 hours now and you're still working on laundry and folding her clothes and like it just and then she never testified at the trial because shortly after all this happened, she fucked off to Europe for like 4 or 5 years after this, and nobody could talk to her, nobody could ask her any questions, her story never made sense, the whole broken window, the time in which she found or she suspected that there was something wrong with Marilyn and her psychiatrist getting there, but because she was in Europe, nobody could ask her any questions, so she got off the hook pretty easily as far as that goes. None of what she said ever made sense. She was working on laundry and doing what I was like for a dead person. Why? Why? Like, what are you talking about? You're working on laundry for the last 4 hours.
Someone paid her off. Get out of here.
Mhm.
Get
Right.
out of here.
Sergeant Clemens also noticed that the bed sheets in which Marilyn was laying on did look and smell clean. So maybe she was working on laundry. I don't know. Maybe they had to hide a bunch of evidence of what they were doing to her body. Clearly, they were moving her body around several times after she was deceased because of the lividity markings. We also know, according to the autopsy report, that she had cyanosis, which you only find in deaths that occurred rapidly. So, this would correlate to like drowning or being strangled. And why would she have this if it was a slow, painful oral sedative overdose? If you die slowly, you would not turn blue. So, what like, I don't know what you think about all this, but it's just every single Netflix documentary you'll ever watch will tell you that she was just sad and drank a bunch of pills down, but, like, why then does she have cyanosis? You know what I mean? It's like, none of this makes sense.
Rob John had a question here earlier. I heard Marilyn gave JFK LSD from the MK Ultra program to get him to admit being a traitor. I haven't heard that exactly, Bob, but I have heard that they tripped LSD together at the White House. Is that something that is verified or that is just rumor or what's going on there?
That's interesting to me because I do know are you familiar with Peter Lawford?
No.
I think that was JFK's brother-in-law or some type of relative to him. He had a beach house, um, that he would take Marilyn to, and that house was also bugged, and, JFK was known to be doing all kinds of crazy weird stuff at Peter Lawford's Santa Monica beach house with Marilyn, um, to the point where they had to bug that guy's house even, and so I know she also had top secret clearance to Lookout Mountain Studio.
Yes.
Um, she was definitely involved with the CIA in some capacity, so it wouldn't surprise me at all to find something like that out because she was definitely being used in, um, you know, different classifications, some of it I think was in our face and some of it I think was very hidden. I think she could have been like a sex kitten type person.
Have you seen any like Mossad connections?
Not that I'm aware of. I think she was dipping her toe into all kinds of stuff, but it's hard to really find stuff like that. And for me, I like to make sure that I can speculate a little bit, but I like to make sure there's something like really concrete before I bring it on to like a presentation or something like that. I have never come across anything like that, but I'm not saying that it couldn't exist because I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I've always heard that story that JFK, Marilyn were at the White House tripping LSD, and then it just so happens that like almost after that, JFK was like, "Oh, let's no more war, defund the war, defund Israel,
Mm,
defund all this stuff." You know, I've always thought
mhm.
that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I actually
Which would
so
make sense if you did trip on some kind of hallucinogenic, because like whenever you do that, it like you realize everything is one, everyone is one.
Mhm. It wouldn't
Everything's
surprise
all
me.
connected.
She actually I think what cooked her goose was showing up at JFK's birthday party, in the see-through dress that Kim Kardashian wore a couple years ago to, like, some awards show. It was actually see-through, you could definitely see right through that dress, and she wore it in front of everyone at JFK's birthday, which they had uninvited her. They called her, the Kennedys, and said, "Do not come to this party, you are uninvited." And she was like, "Fuck you," and she showed up anyways, and then she performed. She was like, "Not only am I gonna come to the party, I'm also gonna perform in front of everyone in a see-through dress," after they told her, like, "You are not supposed to come here." Jackie was livid, everybody was livid, and, she proceeded to, like, dance with John F. Kennedy and Robert at that party, and that night after the party had ended, CIA showed up to all of the, newspaper reporters' hotel rooms and confiscated their cameras because they did not want any pictures being released of JFK and Robert, getting frisky with Marilyn at the birthday party. They also were told to not write anything about Marilyn being there, and then they were threatened. And very shortly after that, we find that she swallowed a bunch of pills and she's dead. Also, her original autopsy report went missing. The original police report went missing. The official medical reports ended up going missing. And when the medical examiner, Dr. Naguchi, went back to retest Marilyn's organs to confirm his suspicion that she had been murdered and that this was a homicide. He found that all of her internal organs had went missing. So, again, if this is just a suicide and she just was real sad one day and took a bunch of pills, what would be the point in covering all this stuff up and going to such lengths to make sure her telephone records, all of her medical reports, autopsy report, police report, her internal organs, they're all missing. They're gone. And then on the day of the funeral, her body went missing for 10 hours. What's the point of that if this is just a suicide? You know what I'm saying? It's just, what were they hiding? Like, come on.
Well, that's almost like JFK. His all of this stuff went missing from the National Archives with JFK as well.
Mhm.
Gone. And all
Yeah.
the RFK stuff is like held under like lock and key, where like only one person can get to the any of the evidence of the RFK assassination as well.
So what I did find is that there was a lieutenant named Marin Phipps who said, this is a quote: "In 1962, Chief Parker took all the files to show someone in Washington about Marilyn Monroe, and that was the last we ever saw of them. And when you look into it further, it would appear that there's like a Pentagon level cover up going on with Marilyn's official autopsy report and everything. And especially like her internal organs going missing. Like, what, why? Like, unless you're trying to hide the fact that she did not take pills, there would be no reason to take them and destroy them, you know? Uh, there was something else that I thought that you would find interesting. Oh, she called Marilyn on the night she died, called her hairstylist, and confirmed her appointment for the next morning. And based on that phone call, confirmed, and the time of death confirmed by the autopsy, it would have been about 10 minutes before she died. And if for someone to have taken 60 to 70 sleeping pills, you're not making phone calls to your hairstylist 10 minutes before you die of a drug overdose. First off, the hairstylist said she sounded great. No slurred speech, no nothing to, presume this person had just taken 70 sleeping pills and was about to die and succumb. And why the fuck do you care about confirming your hair appointment for the next day when you're literally about to enter into the next realm? Like, you would think that'd be the last thing on your mind, to confirm a hair appointment for the next morning when you know you're about to die. So that also just never made sense. Like, why is she confirming appointments and stuff when she's supposedly taken 70 sleeping pills? It just
That's the same type of scenario with the Scott Peterson case as well. Like he had bought
really.
well, I mean, he had bought her like Christmas presents. Like the Christmas presents were still under the tree whenever she went
True.
missing. So like if he was planning on killing her, like everyone, well, I mean, he was charged with it. He was charged for the murder of his wife. But the LA Innocence Project actually tried to pick up the case, and then the judge denied to examine any of the evidence. That was never examined by the police. But that's been the big contention with the Scott Peterson case, is that he had just bought her like a bunch of Christmas gifts. Like if
Mhm.
you're planning on, killing your wife, like
Why
you're
bother?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's some of these inconsistencies to me are just, like, completely wacko. Especially, like, they found this little crumpled up piece of paper next to Marilyn's body. I don't know if she had it in her hand or what, but they found it later when they were wheeling her out. Um, and it was JFK's phone number to his freaking office, written on a tiny piece of paper, and it was found next to her body. And they also say that she was clutching the phone or something like that. Um, I don't think she was clutching the phone. I think that was added in later, just like the water glass and the knocked over bottle of pills and stuff. Because, and again, also, you're going to take and this is what was found in her system, 60 to 70 sleeping pills and 19 to 20 chloral hydrate tablets. Why in the world would you have leftover in the bottle? Her prescription was for like 20 tablets. She had way more than that in her system, and there was still some left on the nightstand. It was literally like a Hollywood production. We're gonna put the phone here. We're gonna have her laying like this. We're gonna have a couple of pills scattered about here. Whoops, forgot the water glass. We'll add that in later. And it's just like why, why? And she must have really pissed somebody off because the woman is a sex icon. She could have anybody that she wanted. Obviously, she's got both of the Kennedy brothers and Chicago mob. She's got literally anybody she wants. Why would it be so important to humiliate her in her death this way unless you were just completely pissed off? No makeup on, her face was bloated and swollen, hair disheveled, completely nude, barely covered up with a sheet. Suicide in itself is looked down upon. I think that this was almost like kind of a humiliation ritual among other things. They need sure, but they also wanted to like humiliate her in the process.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that Mary Pinchot Meyer might have also been found nude, but I might be wrong on that.
If she was, it'd be interesting because much like Marilyn, she had her journal stolen too. And she was having a sexual relationship with John F. Kennedy.
Yep, both doing the same thing. Let me see if I can, because there's some photos of her when she's on the DC towpath whenever she was dead. Oh no, she was clothed.
So
Okay,
do
you got
you
it right.
find that significant though with Marilyn? Do you think that they did this to her to humiliate her? Because that's my opinion.
Well, who are the suspects in this? Who have you pinned this down on? Is there anybody, like any specific individual or specific group of people that may have been involved? I know you mentioned the mob earlier, and it kind of seems like something that the mob would do, especially when you're talking about the enemas.
Yes, it was their preferred method of assassination, if you will, but this is where I need your opinion because this story diverges and goes down two different paths right about here. We know based on forensic evidence in the autopsy report that Marilyn did not kill herself. That is not up for debate. She didn't kill herself. The only question that's left is now who did it and what was the motivation behind doing it. And there are two equally as interesting trains of thought when it comes to who wanted to do it. The Kennedy brothers are the number one suspect on everyone's mind, not only because she was having a sexual relationship with them, but she was trying to make it public, especially at the birthday party. Um, and then the mob, because she was involved with Frank Sinatra, Johnny Roselli, some other mobsters, and the mob was pissed off at the Kennedys because they felt like they had been double crossed by the Kennedys, and they were also aware that Robert Kennedy had paid Marilyn a visit that very day that she died, and they had a big fight, and there were noise complaints that were filed um, that Robert Kennedy and Marilyn were having a huge throwdown that same day. And the mob was aware of this, and I almost think that they set it up to look like the Kennedys did this to her because they were so pissed off at them.
So that they could try and blame it on them in some sort of way, or at least put speculation out there that they had something to do with it.
That's what I think, because when anybody thinks about this, if they first they'll say, "Okay, I agree, Marilyn didn't kill herself, but I think that the Kennedys did it." And I always want them to take a look at the broader picture, because the mob was aware, due to taps at the house and the noise complaint, that Robert Kennedy and Marilyn were fighting that day, and that he was in town, and that they were pissed at each other that day. She was so upset that she didn't even eat that day. She had just had like some grapefruit juice for breakfast, and then basically had nothing until like the night she or until the hour she died. She had nothing. So she was clearly upset. Whatever they talked about definitely was upsetting enough for them to be like screaming and yelling at each other. And then all of a sudden she dies that night after Robert Kennedy has been seen leaving her home that day. It seems a little bit odd for the Kennedys to want to publicly fight with her like that and be seen leaving her home and then go back that same night and kill her. Um, that seems a little odd to me, that they would make it so blatantly obvious like that. But also, I do find it interesting that J. Edgar Hoover got involved after the birthday party, trying to cover up what was happening with the Kennedys in Maryland. He was acting on behalf of the Kennedys, and he was actually the one who sent over like a cleanup crew shortly after Marilyn died to get rid of all like the bugs and grab her um diaries and clean sheets and do stuff like this. That was under the orders of J. Edgar Hoover, which is also why I think the mob did it, because if it was the Kennedys, why would they need to go through such a cleanup act? The mob, I feel like, wanted people to find these diaries and stuff. They wanted people to think, "Oh, Robert Kennedy was over that day and now she's mysteriously dead." They wanted to kind of frame the Kennedys, I think.
Stewart here says RFK's appearance at her home was covered up with fake alibi as a traffic cop also stopped RFK's car in the area for speeding with Peter Lawford at the wheel. Yeah,
Yeah, see,
yeah, it's really interesting. It almost seems like
who would you think out of the two would be more likely?
well, it seems like it would be a really good setup to try and take down the Kennedys, because we know that the mob didn't like the Kennedys, the CIA didn't like the Kennedys, a lot of these intelligence people didn't like the Kennedys. For sure, Israel didn't like the Kennedys. So it seems like that this could have been a way to try and pin it on them before they, tried to do what inevitably ended up happening in 1963. So it could have been like, okay, well, let's see if we can do it this way, and then if not, we'll do like plan B. It almost kind of seems like that, but
Mhm.
they would have had to have known that it would have been like almost impossible to try and pin it on them fully to where the anything could happen to where they would get in trouble or even prosecuted. I don't think that a sitting president can ever be prosecuted for anything while he's president. I could be wrong on that. It might have to be something outside of the jurisdiction of the Constitution, but uh, no president has ever been charged with anything while he's been president. So they had to have known that wouldn't work, right?
Well, I think if anything, it was just,
A slandering thing, they could have like used it as like a slander.
and also to plant that little seed of the Kennedy brothers are bags of shit in everyone's mind. Because, for example, Judy Campbell, Ellen Romstich, I don't know if I'm saying her last name right, and Mary Pinchot Meyer, they were doing a good job of keeping their mouths shut, but their legs open until they weren't, and then they got dealt with, and I think Marilyn is the same. Um,
But the thing
but
about Mary Pinchot Meyer is that she didn't die until after JFK, supposedly died, air quotes. But
Mhm.
Marilyn Monroe was in 92, correct? So this was before, I mean, not 92, sorry, 62.
62,
Yeah.
mhm.
So this was
I think
before Dealey Plaza.
well, in my opinion, I think the same people who did Marilyn, did Kennedy, did Mary, did Robert. Like, there's a lot of speculation about, "Oh, well, the Kennedys had Marilyn killed because she was about to try to go public with all this stuff that secret stuff that we've been telling her." And again, in my opinion, I think it was set up for people to suspect the Kennedys, if for nothing else to just kind of like, um, besmirch their name, the good Kennedy name or whatever. But the mob seems to be heavily involved, especially with the vehicle of, entry into the body, like the enema thing, that's pretty significant and unusual. I think that that stands out, and I think that, um, with Marilyn dying in such a close succession to when John died, I mean, there's somebody who's got to be, at the top making these decisions that's not the Kennedys. So, if people are dying all around this situation, including the Kennedy brothers, it to me, it's like, did they do it? I don't think so. I mean, they got it too.
Yeah, and why would you wanna just off all of your mistresses? It doesn't, I mean, I guess I could see it from, like, a certain angle. I mean, that's kind of what kings used to do, like, way back in the day, you know what I mean? When they would go
Mhm.
around to the whorehouses back in the day, they would end up
Right.
going and killing their, mistresses, or, like, killing their, bastard sons or whatever. Or maybe I'm just watching too much Game of Thrones, I don't know. But I would imagine that if a scenario like that, I could see the circumstances where you would want to get rid of somebody, but there has to be more to it than that. And by what you're saying, that the house was bugged, they were listening to all of her conversations, they knew who was in the house, who wasn't in the house, everything that was being said, then they would know exactly what happened,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
The government would know what happened inside of her house if there was a perpetrator or
Right.
not. So it seems like
Mhm.
they're complicit in the cover up, because otherwise
Oh,
they
they're
would be like,
definitely complicit in the cover up for
Because
sure.
otherwise they'd be like, "Oh, no, we have this, we know exactly what happened. There was people did this to her because we know everything that goes on in this house because we have the entire house bugged."
Right. Yeah, they were definitely especially with J. Edgar Hoover, like, making sure journals disappeared and making sure autopsy reports disappeared and making sure I mean, this is why I say the story, it goes down 2 different paths at this point because there's strong evidence to suggest that the mob and the government may have been in cahoots in somehow covering this stuff up and getting it done. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Did one or both of them did they act independently or in tandem killing Marilyn? I mean, it just, this is the part of the story that you have to just kinda use your best judgment and, what we know about the crime scene and what happened afterwards to make your final judgment about but the one thing that I always like to say is at least we can agree based on the forensic evidence. She didn't kill herself. So, if we can agree on that, then the rest of it is, up for debate.
What if, pure speculation, I don't have any evidence, I'm just coming up with this off of the dome. What if she was pregnant?
Ooh.
with either JFK's kid or RFK's kid.
Well, we know
And that
she
could have been
definitely
the
wanted to be a mom.
and that could have been the big blow up that her and RFK was having together earlier in the day.
Ooh. I mean, to me, that would make sense because whatever they were fighting about, they were getting boisterous, and then he took off. She didn't eat the rest of the day, she was so upset, and she had had several miscarriages and always said how much she wanted to be a mother, so that would make a ton of sense to me. I do find that the further you look into Marilyn, you'll actually see that she was kind of a conniving genius. And she is portrayed in movies as being the dumb blonde character, but everyone who knew her in real life said she was a diabolical genius and that she was very smart and she knew exactly what she was doing. And especially, she's involved with like Lookout Mountain Studios having top secret clearance. She's got all these, politicians and high upper echelon people in her life. She's not an idiot like she's portrayed to be. She's smart, and I feel like she was playing her cards to her advantage, and maybe what something got away from her and she got in over her head and they had to deal with it. Pregnancy, wanting to come out and be public about it, knowing too much, something happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that would be the only thing that would be very detrimental to
Mhm.
them because she could be a mistress and no one cares. I mean, JFK had a lot of mistresses, and some say even what would be the man version of a mistress? Manstress? I don't know. He could
Manstress.
have had some minstress too.
Yeah.
So it's like that's not as damning as what could be a huge public blow up. And
Mhm.
Jackie's pretty hot too. Like, what is he doing, bro? Jackie is a 10 almost.
Yeah,
Like,
I
come
would
on.
say that, Jackie is actually more attractive to me personally than Marilyn, and she had this whole, like, debonair kind of she was the first lady, she was, tremendously ladylike, and her fashion is still iconic to this day. Everybody talked about it. Jackie to me was, super gorgeous. I honestly think that at some point, it's just like with anything else, you just get sick of the person you're with and greener pastures. You it's like, okay, I've seen what she has to offer. I've sampled it several times and now I want to see what else is out there. I mean, John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy were both like total puss hounds. And so was their dad, apparently.
Hey, I guess if you got it, flaunt it. I mean, JFK was an attractive man.
He
I'm not
was,
gonna
yeah.
lie. He's probably the most attractive president that we've ever had. I would say that confidently.
Yeah,
Confidently, he
I
was the most
I
attractive
agree.
president.
I
Besides
think
maybe
that
like
his
Bill Clinton, like in his prime, but I don't even think Bill Clinton even touches him.
Mm-mm. I was gonna say JFK Jr. is also extremely attractive, and what happened to him is up for debate. Let's just say that. Definitely don't think he died in a plane crash. I don't know if he's still alive, but there's a lot to be speculated about with that as well. The Kennedys seem to be plagued by odd circumstances. But something that I did wanna mention about Marilyn that you might find to be like me grasping at straws, or you might find it to be significant. I do think that Stanley Kubrick used several real life incidents, as inspiration in his movies. And in Eyes Wide Shut, there is a Barbie doll in the toy store at the end of the movie. and it's Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Marilyn Monroe. And I feel like it was strategically placed in the shot to where you notice that it's this Marilyn Monroe Barbie doll. And Marilyn lived and died on 12305 Fifth Helena Drive. And the name of the little girl in Eyes Wide Shut is Helena. And there is a lot of significance with the main character Alice, the little girl, and many of the women at the Eyes Wide Shut ritual that seem to have this Marilyn Monroe-esque blonde-haired programmed monarch thing going on. And so, I find that interesting. Also, this home where Marilyn lived and died is less than an hour from Laurel Canyon. Again, she did have top secret clearance to Lookout Mountain Studios, and this house is said to be haunted, and it was listed on Zillow for $8 million. Also, ritualistically, her funeral was on 8/8/1962, which is 888. And there are a lot of weird numbers that come up around Marilyn. Elton John wrote a song about her, Candle in the Wind, when she died, that he also uh he rewrote the lyrics and sang at Princess Diana's funeral, and Princess Diana was also murdered in August, in my opinion. So there's the 8 again. I find things like that to be significant, but, maybe again, I'm grasping at straws. What do you think about that stuff?
I think when it comes to like times and like gematria and numbers, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of seems like a coincidence at sometimes and then other times. But I think that the problem is nobody really knows exactly what it means. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, it's interesting and like these times and dates and stuff, but it's like, well, what does it even? I don't think people even know the conclusion of what anything actually means. That's what I've never really understood about gematria. Is like, I mean, it's cool, but what does it mean, bro?
What does it
And
mean? Yeah.
no one can ever tell you what it means.
So
Um,
for me, like, I'm exactly like you, Ryder, and I've always kind of struggled with gematria and stuff like that, gematria, however it's pronounced. I like to point out, like, hey, all these things happened in or around a similar date, or hey, this happened on August and this whatever. But to me, it's like, could it be a coincidence, or is there something more to it? I don't know. I don't really do numerology. I don't really do gematria stuff, but I find that you can draw connections based on certain weird things like that, or stuff that you see in movies that has the same name as like stuff that happened in real life or whatever. But I'm like you. I don't know what it means all the time, and I don't think we're supposed to literally know the answer to everything. I feel like when I listen to a conspiracy theory podcast and it feels like the person has an answer for everything, I'm kind of worried because it's like, why, how do you know everything? Like, why do you know everything? Why do you have an answer for everything? I think some things should just be left open for listener interpretation. I mean, nobody could possibly know the answer to everything. That's crazy. But what you can do is research and use speculation and start putting facts and shit together that makes sense. And some stuff isn't up for debate, like this autopsy report. I mean, there's no refuting that. It is what it is. She didn't take pills. But yeah, I mean, I don't ever claim to know everything, but what I will say is there's too much going on for there not to be like deeper cover-ups and stuff. We can't accept anything at face value, but will we know the answer to everything? I doubt it.
I was just trying to look up because I think that several albums and songs by popular musicians have been written in Marilyn Monroe's home.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this says that The Weeknd wrote his new album in Marilyn Monroe's old bedroom.
Well,
Um,
that's crazy.
yeah, here it is. Here, real quick. The Weeknd reveals that he wrote a new album in Marilyn Monroe's old bedroom. R&B singer also describes writing a song with Ed Sheeran at a late night party. This is by
That's crazy.
the Canadian R&B singer, real name Abel Tesfaye. Wow. Is scheduled to release his third major album next week in August the 28th, following the 2013's Kissland and his trilogy mixtape compilation LP. This is an old article. The record will feature guest spots from Lana Del Rey, Ed Sheeran, and Labyrinth. A handful of tracks, including the recent single "Can't Feel My Face," were also co-written in Max Martin. Okay, well, where's the song that was written in Marilyn Monroe's bedroom? When you work with someone who has been doing it as long as Max Martin, you can't help but learn. He also revealed how Martin's studio was the former home. Oh, okay. So this guy,
Wow.
Max Martin's studio. So he has a studio in Marilyn Monroe's former home.
Former home.
I came up with the concept for a song called "In the Night" in her bedroom. That was pretty amazing. Continuing,
Wow.
couldn't help but imagine Joe DiMaggio's sperm everywhere on the floor. What kind of statement is that, bro? Yeah. So this dude's got
Wow.
a Max Martin got a studio in Marilyn Monroe's old home. This is an old article though. This is from 2015. But yeah, I just thought that because I had heard that several artists and bands had written albums in her home. I guess they could just like go to her house to get inspiration or something.
Yeah, or it's some type of ritualism. You know, I never discount ritualism. I think that's one of the major players in a lot of these suspicious deaths. You know, I see a lot of ritualism around Brittany Murphy. I see a lot of ritualism around Amy Winehouse. I mean, you name it. I think if you look at the surface level, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, they killed themselves or they died of the flu or whatever." But if you really look, it's like you said at the beginning of this episode, Whitney Houston. You know, there is ritualism tied to these deaths, and they're not usually suicides.
Yes, I would absolutely 100% agree. The trying to find if there's anybody else. I know that there's a really big mansion around LA that a lot of people like rent out for like 6 months.
Maybe it's Frank Zappa's log cabin.
That's probably what it is up there on Lookout Mountain.
You're right.
You need to get that up there. Yeah,
Have you gosh, I was gonna say something about have you heard that Jared Leto's got some kind of weird cult thing going on at Lookout Mountain Studios?
no, but I do know that he's been accused of SA by multiple women
Oh, right. Well, that don't surprise me.
as of recently. Like right after we did that show, like whenever I was on your channel doing the show on A Clockwork Shining, the thing popped up and I was like, oh man, I wish I would have known about this before we did that
That
show.
episode together?
Yeah. Okay, so here it is. I'm not gonna like read it out, but I'll just show you guys the article here. Okay. Jared Leto accused of predatory behavior against women, teenage girls. 9 women have come forward that allegedly predatory behaviors displayed by the actor Jared Leto.
Wow.
This isn't the only one. There's like several. It's all over everywhere. Here you go.
So why is he not getting in trouble?
What is going on here? I hate these freaking pop-ups.
He's a raper.
He's an But yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. I think that this some of this might be coming from the cult that he's supposedly running as well.
Dude, he's got some kind of cult thing going on because somebody said, "Oh, Joe Rogan." My husband was telling me Joe Rogan was like defending Jared Leto on his show, like, "Oh, there's nothing going on up there. Jared Leto's a great guy. They're just listening to music and braiding each other's armpit hair like good hippies do, and there's nothing to be suspicious about." And it's like, dude, come on.
Yeah, this just came out. There was a guy that I was listening to not too long ago on TikTok. He's had his channel taken down several times on TikTok. He's had to make new ones where he pretty much he like stumbled across this one of Jared Leto's parties.
Mhm.
And he was like walking around the thing. He was like saying that he was seeing all this stuff and all this was like weird. And then like he jutted out of there. Predatory, terrifying, and unacceptable. The problem with Jared Leto, the Oscar winning actor, has expiring cult leader right there. Okay. 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 Okay.
Uh-huh.
Has been accused of inappropriate behavior, leaving Disney with over $200 million headache.
Disney?
I think he's signed. I think well, he's doing a movie with Disney. He's supposed,
Morbius?
no, that was Sony. I think he's doing
Oh.
a Tron sequel.
Hmm.
Oh, well, I gotta put in my email to continue this. Oh, I hate these freaking things. Can't even read the full article without subscribing to putting your email or your phone number in. You're not getting my data, Google.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. They just want your data. Don't play into it, Ryder.
But yeah, I think he's supposed to be the main actor of this new Tron sequel or something that's supposedly in development.
That's interesting to me. I mean, Jared Leto is a creepy, weird guy. And he's been in a bunch of creepy, weird movies. But this recent stuff of him basically being a cult leader is like nobody's gonna talk about, nobody's noticed. Like, hello, what's going on over here? And he's obviously a raper.
Yeah, but Disney will cover that up. The film's already been shot. It's set to release in October of this year. It's called Ares, Tron Ares, and he's going to be playing the AI digital Ares program in the new Tron movie. So it's already like set to release. So they're going to try and squash this whole SA allegations from him
Mhm.
until at least until they've made their money from the movie. But it's like something that's really quiet and like on the down low. Like you didn't really hear about this. I had to. I think the only way that I stumbled across it was because I was making a reel from like a short video from our discussion, and I typed in. I haven't posted it yet. It's not out on YouTube. I think it's scheduled to release tomorrow, and I'm going to post it on social media as well. But I had to search up his name to get like pictures of him to put together in this short reel video that I did from our conversation. And then when I typed in his name, all these articles started popping up.
Oh, damn. That's crazy.
Weird. But then I was like, oh my God, I should have brought this up when I was on it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, good thing that we did this so we could circle back, as they say.
Circling back, always good. So where do you where do you stand on this Marilyn Monroe stuff? Do you think that you've already kind of mentioned that you don't believe that it was the Kennedys, that you thought that the Kennedys were kind of set up to take the fall for it? And also, why? Because I think that that's also a really big question that's looming over this entire scenario. It's the who and the why.
Yeah, I mean, Ryder, it's like I said, for me to sit here and say I have all the answers, I would be lying, and I would be, not doing the listeners of a service, because I like to leave things open-ended sometimes for people to continue to do their own research and come to their own conclusions on what they think could have happened. My opinion and my speculation is that the mob set it up to where it would look like the Kennedys were involved because they were so pissed at the Kennedys, but somehow J. Edgar Hoover needed to step in to help with the cleanup, as to not have certain things revealed about the Kennedys. Some journals going missing and stuff like that. It's interesting to me. Internal organs going missing, body going missing. I mean, my thing is, I hope when I do this presentation that I can at least get people on board with the fact that she did not kill herself. That's the number one thing. And then wherever people want to take it after that, I can't say right or wrong. I mean, for me, I think the mob was involved to a high degree. I think that the Kennedys were involved to a high degree in some unspecified capacity. I just I want to think that whoever did Marilyn also did the Kennedys, or were involved in setting that up, because it's like they died pretty close in time to Marilyn and John F. Kennedy died pretty close in time, I would say. So somebody is at the top of this pyramid taking out everybody. And then Mary, like you said, Mary Pinchot Myers, she died after John. So it's like, even after the Kennedys are getting killed, people are still turning up dead. So it can't be them doing all of it.
That's a good explanation, Julia. And thank you for coming on. Really appreciate your time this evening. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Can you let everyone know where to find you online? Plug what you're doing, plug your podcast, plug your show, so we can get people over there to you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Ryder. I have Cosmic Peach podcast. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts, except for YouTube. They've already kicked me off. If you want full versions of episodes, extended stuff, bonus stuff, all the videos, it's on Patreon. The subscription is called Room 237. And if you want to work with me in the future, please don't send me an Instagram message, because that inbox is crazy full. I don't even check it anymore because I get so many crazy messages on Instagram. You can send me an email through my link tree, or I'll just tell you my email. It's ghost.peach@outlook.com. So you can just send me an email, or you can go through the link tree. And that's the best way to reach out to me, because if you send me a message on Instagram, don't get mad at me if I never open it. That inbox is wild. That inbox is out of control. I got people trying to sell me stuff. I got people trying to send dick pics. I'm good. I'm not even opening that inbox anymore. So, but thanks so much for having me, Ryder.
Thank you very much, Julia. Really appreciate it. The links to Julia's information is in the description of this video. Please go over there and check out her work. And thanks for being here, everyone. Appreciate everyone in the chat. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to help the channel and the algorithm. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. And we'll see you guys next time. Julia, stay with me.